Welcome to this Lesson Lab module titled Student Collaboration Small Group Talk that was designed and produced by GoTeach11. Your journey starts here. In this module, you'll be able to design a small group task that requires students to collaborate in groups of 3 to 4. You'll need your copies of the Fundamental 5 and Focus for this module. You'll demonstrate your learning in a 10-minute mini lesson. To earn credit for this module, you'll conduct a few minutes of direct, teacher-centered instruction, and then transition to an open-ended question or task that requires students to collaborate in groups of 3 to 4. If you haven't already done so, grab your books and let's get started. This course differs from the Student Collaboration Paired Discussion module in two ways. The first, of course, is simply the number of students that are working or collaborating together. The second is that it's not intended to mimic the very beginning of class. Instead, this module and lesson lab will represent a transition that occurs after teacher-centered direct instruction. So, what does the research say about frequent opportunities to think, process, and talk about the learning? Well, pause the video now and read pages 72 to 73 of Focus to find out. Check your understanding. Think about what the research of Silver, Strong, and Perini says about the frequency of planned teacher pauses. How long should teachers teach before stopping to allow students to think about the content and talk with peers? Yeah, you got it, no more than 5 minutes. Is that surprising? I recently observed a classroom where students took notes and defined rhetorical devices for 50 minutes straight. It was the longest 50 minutes of my life. In a conversation that followed with the teacher, she shared that even she got bored and that she should have split the task up into smaller bits. I couldn't have agreed more. Planning for small group talk breaks the cycle of boredom and creates an opportunity to check students' understanding. Frequent small group purposeful talk is one of the practices in the Fundamental 5 that facilitate quality instruction. Read about small group talk on pages 51 to 60 of the Fundamental 5. Compare this information to Schmoker's Focus. Consider what you'll need to prepare for your upcoming mini lesson. Stop reading at the section titled Instructional Rigor and Relevance. Now that you've completed your reading, let's look at some of the different components for this practice. These opportunities to react should occur frequently in the lesson. The Fundamental 5 says every 10 to 15 minutes, as opposed to Focus's 5. For the third lesson lab, we'll use Schmoker's 5-minute guideline as a maximum time for teacher talk. Let's think, what are some ways to facilitate the frequency of these teaching stops? Many teachers use timers and also explicitly place questions at different points in their lessons. Digital timers are easy to find online. YouTube even has embeddable timers you can upload in Google Slides presentations. Think about how the layout of your room can support small group talk. Which image here would be better to support student collaboration? Yeah, of course, the image on the right. If students have to move furniture every time you want them to work together or talk together, there's going to be too much time lost. Depending on the size of your class and the furniture your school provides, you may have limited options for grouping desks. If this is the case, establish a procedure for students to get up, meet with their partners, and physically move around so they could get to collaborating as efficiently as possible. There are lots of grouping strategies to get students where they need to go. We found a TeachHub article that provides many grouping options. Locate this article in your Canvas resources and scan over some of these options to get students efficiently into their groups. One more note about grouping. Figuring out who works best together in groups is a year-long process that is going to take constant refinement. Getting to know your students' strengths and personalities helps inform your decision making so that each member can fully participate and remain on task. For small group talk to be effective, it needs to serve a specific purpose. And to do that, you'll need to plan ahead and really create a solid open-ended question. When we say open-ended, we mean that there's not necessarily one correct answer to the question, and there's rationale for having multiple students co-construct their thinking. You must establish routines and expectations for the peer talk, just like you've done in previous lesson lab. Finally, you hold students accountable by walking around to different groups, monitoring the talk, and listening to the conversations with the intention of highlighting some of the strongest points that were made in a whole class debrief that follows. Now we'll conclude this module's reading by finishing the chapter in the Fundamental 5. As you read pages 60 to 68, consider how the seed question you create can help step up the rigor from your direct teaching. Don't worry too much about memorizing all the information from Bloom's taxonomy, as we'll learn about this more in depth in a later module. Okay, so what are the next steps and how do I accomplish this? Well, the small group talk begins with a high-level seed question. So first, look at your TEKS, consider a daily lesson objective, think about a chunk of learning you'll deliver before the small group talk, and then create a question that prompts students to think or process the learning so that they could take it further. Okay, so I want to give you a really good example for how this could look, and I put it into the context of a third grade science class. I looked over the TEKS. I found one that I think will work nicely. The TEKS is 3.7b. As a reminder, the SE, or the student expectation, is just the 7b part. It says the student is expected to investigate rapid changes in the Earth's surface, such as volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and landslides. Pretty fun topic. So I take the SE and I try to think, how can I measure this? How can I make it manageable within one class period? This leads me to creating the objective. We will investigate changes in the Earth's surface, and I'll be able to predict how the changes affect living and non-living things. So I think to myself, what will I need to do to set students up to work in groups? My idea is to begin class with a direct teach, resurfacing knowledge from a previous unit about the rock cycle and weatherization, and then I think it'd be fun to pique curiosity into rapid changes by giving them an urgent, news-breaking message about needing groups of scientists to investigate drastic changes that are occurring on Earth's crust this very minute. That should be enough on my end to get them working in their groups. I can ask each group to send me a leader, where they'll pick up a before and after shot of an earthquake, a landslide, a volcanic eruption, or a sinkhole. Once the groups have those images, I'll say something like, Hearts, start us off. What are the differences before and after? We can assume in my class I have different playing cards on each desk, either a heart, a diamond, a spade, or a club. This works really great for groups of 4. So the hearts start the conversation off, but the conversation continue to any member just has to begin with the hearts. I'm not going to stop there with that one question because I want to step up the rigor. I'll give them QR codes of videos of the actual events and then lead with the seed question. Spades, lead the conversation. What could have caused the event? Give them some time, then follow with diamonds, set us straight. What's the impact of the event? To make this even more purposeful and hold the group accountable, I'll have them summarize their investigation by making a mini report. I'll say, back to me in 3, 2, 1. Student who has the most pets, get ready to share your group's findings with the class. Your group has 3 minutes to outline your report. Ready, go. As we stated before, when students are collaborating in groups, you're actively monitoring in the power zones and listening in on the conversations. Having a clipboard with you that has space for you to record notes about the students and the conversations that are taking place is an advanced teacher move that's super important for monitoring and adjusting, and thus why it's part of the extra challenge for this lesson lab. We located a video that illustrates how a teacher helps hold students accountable when collaborating. Check out this video in your Canvas resources and think about how this teacher makes the talk more purposeful. Many teachers define the behaviors and vocabulary they want students to use during the small group talk. They're explicit about what they should see and hear, which helps students take their conversations to the next level. Part of the extra challenge for this module is providing students with conversation stems to help them structure their ideas and build off their peers. Check out your Canvas resources where we've included some examples of sentence stems. Please note that handing students a list of stems isn't enough. You should choose the specific ones that students should be using and model what they may sound like in a conversation. Some teachers will keep these stems taped on desks or have students glue them into their notebooks. It's also okay just to write the stems on the board as you go. Doesn't take a lot of effort, but often helps ease students into the academic discussion more efficiently. Congratulations, you finished your learning for this module and are ready to prepare for your mini lesson. Let's review the proficiency rubric one more time. To earn credit for this module, you'll start the mini lesson by conducting direct teacher-centered instruction and then pose a task or open-ended questions for students to collaborate in groups of 3 to 4. For that extra challenge, make sure that every student has a responsibility or role within the group and provide relevant sentence stems to help strengthen the academic discourse. Here are just a few tips to help you prepare for your mini lesson. It's always a good idea to start with the TEKS and craft a daily lesson objective to put the work into context. It's not necessary to share the lesson objective though, because the small group work and that follows a direct teach would realistically occur after you've already shared the lesson objective. So again, it's not necessary to share the lesson objective in this lesson lab. You will need to start the learning by leading with any sort of essential information that the students will need to participate in the task together. This could be a very short note-taking experience, maybe showing an image or a video or presenting an infographic. And then once you do that direct instruction for just a few minutes, maybe 3 minutes or so, 3.5, 4 minutes, then you lead students into, you present them the task or the question that you want them to ponder and discuss. And you do that by, of course, planning the directions that you want to give to lead them there. Just like we prepared effective directions in the last lesson lab, you could do the same thing by scripting the directions so that you're ensuring that every student is actively participating in the task or answering the question. After 5 minutes or so, you can call in the task, in the collaboration, and provide an opportunity for students to share their findings. Maybe you have one member from the group share their findings, or one member from each group if we have enough participants for multiple groups. There are elements of classroom management in this lesson lab, so you will, of course, need to be active in the power zone and monitoring the group work and taking notes if you take them on that extra challenge to do so. But we don't necessarily need to breathe down students' necks while this is happening. We do want to give them an opportunity to work together, to self-regulate. We want to give them an opportunity to shine. But when you see that the behaviors or misinterpretation of your expectations are getting in the way of the learning, that's when you adjust as needed. If you're needing some help or clarification with how you can create a collaborative task or what sort of question would be best to lead the small group work with, just reach out to a specialist. We'd be happy to help you clarify what could be done to help students collaborate. One final suggestion. One way to help make the collaboration more memorable is to incorporate writing where students can summarize or reflect on their findings. If it's appropriate for your grade level and content, have individual students or each group craft a sentence or two after they've worked with their peers. Thanks for watching this video titled Student Collaboration Small Group Talk. As a classroom teacher, you're given seeds that aren't quite ready for what they can become. But under your right conditions, small group talk gives students the opportunities to benefit from their environment and flourish into something special. This video referenced pages from the Fundamental 5 and Focus. Images were downloaded from 123RF, Pixabay, and Unsplash.